Good evening, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for coming. My name is Kiefer, and I'm the director of the Church in the 21st Century Center here at Boston College. And some of you might know that our mission is to be a catalyst and a resource for the renewal of the church. And during the Lenten season, we host an Easter series. And the Easter series is focused on ways to help parishes in Catholic schools. So a couple of weeks ago, we hosted a conversation with a pastor and a religious educator and a super creative catechist and preschool teacher from St. Paul's, who happens to be here tonight, talking about what vibrant parishes do. And we had a really lively conversation, but we really didn't talk about digital ministry at all, and that's because we were going to tackle that subject tonight. So I'm super excited because I'm going to be in conversation with three experts. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. So we have Boston College graduate John Grosso, class of 2014, and he is a digital strategist, a digital guru, an author, a speaker, and newly appointed digital editor for National Catholic Reporter. That said, he was one of 16 people in the world that was considered like an ace at communicating with the Vatican and helping Vatican officials, which is super impressive. He's also written several articles that we've published in our magazine over the years. One most recently, in the most recent magazine, our 20-year issue, the last article, Take a Peek. He runs his own company and is married, lives in Connecticut, and has a new baby girl named Rose. So we're so excited to have him. Then we have Michael Persson. Michael actually worked at BC for a while in advancement in strategic marketing. And then Catholic Memorial, a local Catholic high school in West Roxbury, saw his gifts and snatched him up. And so he's been with Catholic Memorial since the pandemic. September, just come. And what he has done in the last couple of years for Catholic Memorial is just outstanding. So we want to unpack that, how you did it. And then, of course, we have John Walsh, also a Boston College graduate, class of 2017. I knew John when he was a freshman, and he knew nothing about video. And then felt the call to learn more about video and the power of video, and quickly became a video prodigy. And you've probably seen his work, because anything that BC does of significance in the world of video, John has produced it, including, if any of you watched the Harry Potter admissions video that he did. Just extraordinary. So John's going to be with us to talk a little bit about how we can all be videographers and we can all be video prodigies. So anyway, let's get started, because this is a big subject. Like, we need to communicate, and we need to communicate well, especially coming out of the pandemic. And some of us in this room already have communication, blueprints, and they know what they're doing. Others, maybe not so much, and others want to learn more. So that's what we're going to unpack. The great hope for tonight, and for the hundreds of people out there that signed up to get this video, we hope you walk away with not only inspiration, but also some ideas that you can share with your parish, or share in your school, or share with a friend, or even a small business owner. So let's get started. John, first question to you. And Michael, you might want to chime in too. When you talk about having a really effective communication strategy, what's involved in that?
Good, it's working. It's a good question. The very first thing I tell my clients or anybody that I'm working with is It's about your goals. You have to set your goals, and I know how sort of intuitive that sounds, but a lot of my clients will come to me and say, well, I want to do social media, or I would like to participate, in an email newsletter. And the very first thing I ask them is, why? What are you trying to do? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to reach more people? Again, why? Are you trying to get more people at Mass? Are you trying to get more donations? Are you trying to get more people involved in your ministries? Are you trying to build online community? So I have my clients, my parishes, and my schools clearly define a measurable, statistically measurable goal. We are trying to increase Mass attendance by 15%. That will then inform everything you do and everything that you build strategically. And then I have them talk about an intangible goal. So a lot of my clients and people that I work with come to sort of the conclusion is we want to be the good news online. We want to minister to people in their day-to-day lives online. That's not really easy to measure, but at least those two in tandem can then inform strategically what you're trying to achieve. And then you build out from there. You always have to build out from your goal, because then you can decide, okay, so if we're trying to increase Mass attendance, then we need to figure out who our audience is. If our current audience online is reflective of our parishioners, and our parishioners are generally older, well, then we know we need to have a robust Facebook campaign. But if our target audience is younger, well, then we know we need to pivot to Instagram. And then from there, you can work on, well, what are the strategies involved in each specific platform, given my specific audience, where I am, where my parish is located, and my demographics what my demographics consist of, and start targeting and appropriately messaging from them, because digital messaging is a lot more personal, I think, than people realize.
I think, too, that just getting started thinking like that, I mean, it's overwhelming, right? And at the parish level and at the Catholic school level, it's usually like one person doing it. So it's trying to figure out, how can I do this all and make
And sometimes you don't
contribution?
have that luxury.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you don't have the luxury to necessarily sit down and say, hey, how are we going to do this? How are we going to map this out? In the space that I work in, I mean, I inherited, for lack of a better word, either the strategy or no strategy, depending on how you want to look at it. So, I had to go in there and very much grab the sort of bull by the horns and sort of look at what we were doing and extrapolate from that the things that we were doing well, the things that we needed to get better at, and the things that we weren't even touching. So I think depending on the space in which you work, my immediate sort of goal was to get a strategy, because clearly it hadn't been working. We didn't have a significant donor base. We did not necessarily have a website that was working at a maximum sort of as a marketing engine. And furthermore, we really didn't have, a mission that we wanted to achieve every year, going back to what John was saying, percentage of what we needed to achieve, how much money we needed to raise, etc. So definitely in my school space, I look at communications as two things. One is the outward communications to the world, and then the other one, which is just as important, if not more, is the communication to our alumni and donor base.
And if you put that in a parish perspective, the internal audience is obviously the parishioners, right?
And ministry leaders.
And ministry leaders, yeah, and catechists. And then the external world, like, hello, we're here, our church is here, come find us, right? And figuring out how to do that. I'm curious, Michael, so when you arrived at CM, so has it been 2 years, 3 years?
It'll be 3 in September.
Okay. You mentioned how you were looking at certain things that you knew right away you had to change or develop. What were those?
Well, the biggest one was our advertising budget, which was we were spending $100,000 a year on print journalism. And that I broke down was probably because my job is not only raising funds for the school via advancement, but to work towards getting a 160 some odd boy head count in every year. So we need to work on that. So then I just broke it down. How much are we spending on 160 boys with a $100,000 budget? And of course, my math isn't great tonight, but it was astounding. It was sort of almost, I was exhausted at the thought of it. But so we had to figure out how to get that budget way down. And the next thing was to turn all our marketing into digital forms of marketing, because print is expensive, postage is expensive. We can't measure, well, you can measure it in a certain extent, but you certainly cannot measure it as well as you can on any digital marketing platform. So that had to be done in short order. And the other thing was that our school was called Catholic Memorial High School, which it is a high school, but it's Catholic Memorial. And so I had to really go about bringing
Because
back,
you have a middle school.
we have a middle school as well. And when you searched us, we would always come in second to a school, I think it's in Wisconsin. And so I thought to myself, we got to get the school back to its original name. So I've been very deliberate in sort of cutting high school out of our name. And now we can begin to move forward with placement on a Google search or whatever that might be. But we were definitely lost. So there was these layers that were just hard to remove, but needed to be.
Mm-hmm. But you said that you wanted to cut back on print, but I know Catholic Memorial, you have the magazine, right?
We do have a magazine.
And that's a big investment.
It is. It's a big investment.
And it's
twice a
working
year.
for you.
It is. We use our magazine not as a means to which we show what certain students are doing, although that is secondary to the main theme, and that is marketing. And so what we do is we create pieces within the magazine that we can pull out as PDFs and then use for other forms of marketing. We can reach out to other people with them. For example, if we're starting a planned giving society, we can then take something that was in the magazine and use that as the info page that we then send out, or we can post it to our website.
Mm-hmm. I know that you can also do a digital magazine.
Which we do.
And
so we don't have a digital magazine that is sort of the issue type where we just faithfully record it. We have a digital magazine that is on the website that has additional content pertaining to the print version, but separate from. So we drive new audiences to that as here's the extra content.
John, so in digital ministry, do we lose encounter? I mean, I know you talk a lot about that, encounter, and the importance of encounter. And can it really substitute for some of the other marketing strategies that parishes and Catholic schools could be using?
I don't know that I would use the word substitute, but it can, like all good things, right? And like everything in Catholic world, it's always both and. The most Catholic word in the English dictionary is and. So yes, I think that sometimes we can lose encounter on digital media. We're a sacramental church, so we're fundamentally reliant on being in person to receive the grace of the sacraments. Now, that said, people live at least some portion, if not maybe even almost a large portion of their lives online. So it requires encountering people there. I mean, Pope Francis talks about going to the margins of society. And so I really believe that social media ministry can function as a margin. And so if you're not ministering to people there, if you're not actively engaging them, encountering them, even in horribly scary places like the comments section or Twitter, all of it, you're missing a part of the person. So I think there are ways to have digital encounters. I think that they're not unlike our physical encounters here. During COVID, we saw just tons of people watching Mass online, and this really fun and curious phenomenon would happen in the Diocese of Bridgeport, where during the sign of peace, everybody would say, "Peace be with you," in the comments, which was really adorable and very sweet and brought a sense of community. And more often than not, those little pods of people that were always watching the 10 o'clock live stream mass would find some commonality and would be able to interact and talk to each other. We also found in Bridgeport, and also with some of the clients that I've worked with, Parishes, that they would have people reaching out to them, or that would be very visibly upset in the comments and very scared, especially during the beginning parts of COVID. And so we would talk to those people. We said, let's go take this offline, direct message, introduce, hi, my name is John. I am the person behind this account. What's bothering you? Let's talk about it. Like, let's have a real experience here. Some of my fondest memories and some of my, I think, things that I would count as sort of my career bests were one-on-one interactions that I had with people, with parishioners, with alumni. Often when a school closes or when a sister school closes is a horribly traumatic thing. And so just messaging and commenting and being with people one-on-one where they are and not having any agenda. I'm not trying to get you to an event. I would love it. I'm not trying to get you back to Mass. I would also love that. I'm not trying to get you to donate. I would love that very much. I'm just trying to love you where you are. And more often than not, those people would then bring their friends to our digital spaces or bring themselves in person.
That's the encounter.
Yes.
Right. I want to bring John Walsh into the conversation just because I think the thread of video is going to kind of flow through our conversation and how you can use it and where you can use it. Why does video matter so much now, John?
I think it's pretty astounding that 80% of online traffic is video. And I think whether you're some of the people that participate in scrolling on your social media platforms or your kids or your parishioners or friends, it's astounding how much we're put in the presence of video on a day-to-day basis. And when I think about the context of a parish and faith, I think faith is storytelling, and storytelling is so central to video. And I think you can really capture storytelling in an authentic way through the use of video. We learn a lot from our students who are applying to BC, who are current students at BC. And I often laugh because I'll spend all this time, producing quote unquote professional videos, but then it will be the vlog or the student produced shot on their iPhone that will go viral and will have all the viewership. So I think I talk about that because authenticity is just so crucial to video and is an asset to storytelling. And video really lends itself as a medium to capture authentic stories. And I think that's what we're looking for at the parish level, at Catholic schools. And I think it's kind of one of the assets of the higher level thinking that's going on with the two of you here on this panel.
And that everyone's a storyteller, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to pick up on that because that is probably one of the single most important bites of information here. I mean, statistically, I can back up for my clients, but also for the dioceses and archdioceses that I've worked with, is the testimonials of faith, particularly in video, but in any capacity that you can get them that resonates with people. It's not doctrinal pronouncements. It's not, we have this wonderful ministry. It's not even adorable pictures of our children in whatever class doing something amazing. It's real, authentic testimonials of faith, and that usually precipitates an encounter.
Yes, video is king, and whenever we try to put out the values of our school and what we try to do on a daily basis, we usually get testimony, be it from parents or be it from former alumni recounting their times, or it might be the two ladies who sit every day and deal with students and their parents, and we create videos where they just talk about the value of what they bring, what the school does for boys, etc. And it's had a tremendous impact on our marketing as well as our fundraising. People give when they feel emotionally connected to something, and video absolutely does that.
I also think, too, that it's intimidating and can be overwhelming to learn how to do it. That said, I watched John Walsh learn how to do video through YouTube. And he would stay up all night when he was here at BC. And I would say to him, because he would come and stop by the office, what time did you go to bed last night? And he would just watch videos and see a video that he thought was interesting and then figure out how to make it. But for all of us that are not John Walshes and that don't stay up all night watching YouTube, like, what's a layman's approach to doing video? It's just picking up your phone and.
Yeah, that phone is incredibly powerful. And like I mentioned earlier, students are capturing content all the time. And so are you in your day-to-day lives. There's a few different platforms. It depends on how far you want to engage in quote unquote professional video production. There's a lot of free learning that can happen on YouTube. As Karen mentioned, YouTube is such a resource for learning. And we also know that about audience viewership. People go on YouTube to learn. So when you're making content that is more learning or teaching of nature, that's what the platform you want to utilize. Whereas maybe Instagram, Facebook might be more entertainment or brief testimonial sound bites. So that might be like the assets you're creating and where you want to post them. But in terms of learning to create video, one of the editing platforms that's free that I've seen a lot of BC students use is called DaVinci Resolve. It's a free editing software that you can download today and start using. Just by show of hands, how many in the room have attempted to make a video before or have made videos before? Great, that's a great show of hands.
Great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So hopefully that as an editing software resonates. You can get apps on your phone very easily. You can take Adobe licenses, which is a little more expensive. That's kind of the more professional tool. But again, your iPhone can capture great photos. You can actually go on different Instagram channels and TikTok channels that show you how to better utilize your phone to create content. I'm kind of a nerd for those. Like I get targeted on Instagram for how to use your phone better to tell stories. So if you find those channels, you can see clever ways to create video content that way.
Yeah, and another thing that we found is that sometimes, a video is a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a story, but sometimes we don't have that luxury. So what we've managed to do, which I think it would be very helpful for people who are still struggling with the idea of like, oh my goodness, I don't know whether I can do this, is that we mix short video clips with still images. And depending on how we edit those, it can give just as a dynamic and sort of, shall we say, energetic feel of what we want to portray. And you can do it relatively quickly. And
it's some of those apps are free.
Oh yeah, if you have a Mac, you have iMovie, and is it the best tool? No, but it works. It works. You can mix those.
Animoto.
Oh yeah,
Animoto.
absolutely. Yep.
That's another one.
Yeah, you can mix in those still images, and we're not talking about like hour-long professionally produced video. No one's going to, well, not nobody, but very few people that you're going to be ministering to are going to have the time to watch that. But there is sort of, short and long-form video, and the tools that Johnny described are fantastic for either one of those.
I think one of the things too is where there's a story that you want to tell, I think you find the skills to tell it eventually if you're passionate enough about the story you want to tell and the goal you have. So I guess if you take nothing from me, that if you're passionate about the story you want to tell, you can find the resources to learn, especially in video, to tell that story.
I also think too that we can take advantage in a beautiful way of the gifts of the young people in our parishes and in our schools, and put together some kind of like a street team where they feel like they're part of, the storytelling, and they know how to work in, technology better than we do. That's for sure.
We rely on that all the time with our students. I mean, we now have a sort of pack of boys that are all very interested in their phones, and they'll come into our office and sort of say, hey, can I borrow this lens, etc. And it's giving us the access that an adult wouldn't have to that authenticity between students, that when I show up, everyone's, okay, we've got to do something. But when one of their friends is shooting it, it becomes genuine. And we think that's a way more authentic way to help what we're trying to say than if I, for that matter, or three people with lights and a camera are sort of like hovering around. Just, it has its purpose, but for when you want to be authentic, I think that sort of street idea from from those type of people really help. And the other thing, as being part of a school, we like to push boys all through their 4 years in the high school. And for example, this year we have a boy graduating, going to NYU because he worked with our team all the way through, and
Got the bug.
he found his calling.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
That's really
The one thing I would just suggest with that is, to use a word, I would baptize that ministry in some way. A lot of my clients will rely on interns, but a title that someone can put on their resume. First of all, it formalizes the arrangement, which is extremely helpful. Some of my clients will pay freelancers of 16 and older a small stipend, which also formalizes that arrangement there. It's also adjusted. It doesn't need to be it could be very small amount of money. And also using that strategically, right? So your parish or school may not be able to do that for every single event. You're not going to be able to do that necessarily. One of my parishes has a bingo night, okay, that might not work. But for the annual feast celebrating your patron, for, alumni night, for your school is famous for your drama, the plays, you can engage that, it's all about being strategic. What stories do you want to tell? And that's how you can kind of make it more manageable. Not absolutely everything. Maybe in a ideal world you could do that, but concentrate that attention and budget in key moments, and I think you'll see better results than trying to do it scattershot over everything and kind of struggling to maintain higher quality.
I also like the opportunity that this might present for young kids making their confirmation.
Yes.
Or after they've made their confirmation. I know in our parish they make it sophomore year, and then we're trying to get them back, and kind of get them engaged in this way, So I think, again, that's an opportunity. I want to talk about budgets in a little bit, but I want to really unpack best practices for websites. Not only what's necessary and what's effective, and what works. So, John, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I think there's two different tracks here. There's the parish track and the school track. The school track is going to be, we'll talk about that, but highly dependent on your audience. But for the parish track, I know one thing, and I know that it is universal. People are coming to your website for your mass times. 85 to 90% of your people are coming for your mass times. So mass times need to be, give it to them. Big, updated, have a ticker on the bottom that says last updated blank date, even if you have had no changes to your mass times. Give that current weekend that it was last updated, because I cannot tell you, this happened to me too many times that I don't want to, we're too many people on the recording to share with you the amount of times I would go to a parish website. My wife, my now wife, at that point girlfriend, and I would meet in the middle for mass on Sunday, and we'd go to a parish. We found it online. It looked lovely. The mass time said 11 o'clock. Show up. Doors were locked. Then we're scrambling and trying to find, and we often did, not always. And so that's a real problem. People are coming to your website for mass times. So big, scalable from tablet, mobile. It needs to be very visible on mobile, because usually someone's checking from the car going, all right, I got groceries and I'm going to just try to make a mass. Number one. And number two, maybe 1A, is updated high-res inviting imagery, not just of your beautiful churches. I'm sure they're gorgeous, but that's not what people want to see, that the space is reverent. But people want to get the feel of what is it like to worship here. If I'm on a parish website and I'm looking and I see, sullen, downtrodden, people, sort of staring at the ground, not looking particularly happy to be there, I might skip that church and go somewhere else. Young people are parish hopping like crazy. And there's so much I know you can't control, but that you can control. Now for schools, very quickly, I think it's entirely your audience. As we had schools in the Diocese of Bridgeport that were heavy alumni-based schools. They wanted their alumni coming to their website, donating, and taking a trip down memory lane and enjoying the nostalgia. We had a lot of schools that were parent-based, utilitarians, utility-based websites where parents wanted to know what my kid was doing, what the calendar is, how do I pay my tuition, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't have necessarily the blueprint. I would be lying to you if I did, because I think it's entirely dependent on your audience. So the first thing you should do is check Google Analytics. And then I'd be happy to have a private conversation with you based on that, how to optimize your websites.
Which means you have to Google Analytics, so that maybe
We could talk about that too.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But also too, the platforms that are out there that are so inexpensive to use and so easy to use, like Wix.com, Squarespace.
Weebly.
Even if you want to be fancy, WordPress is sometimes a template is a little bit of money, but that really classes up a site if you're trying to be a little more custom. I usually bring most of my clients there. It's a little bit more money on startup, but then it's pretty maintenance free because it's very easy to use.
Bringing young people into helping you do it too.
Yes.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy when I came to Catholic Memorial, I literally scrapped the website and I made the decision as to what is our marketing approach going to be. Is it going to be inbound or outbound? And when I made that decision, I then decided we're an inbound marketing school, meaning that our website becomes our digital front door. And with that agreed upon, we now needed to make the content clean, concise. Things were very sort of immediate to show someone who knew nothing about us everything they needed to know, which was different from the site before, which reminds me of a saying I think Julia Childs said about the home cook. They oftentimes confuse their soup pot with the dustbin because they throw everything in it. And so what I found was that we had absolutely everything in this website. Couldn't navigate it, didn't know where I was. I wasn't sure quite what I was looking at. And it sort of got to the point where I thought, well, this is going to be a longer retrofit than if were I to start from scratch, and that's what I did. And since that time, and with the philosophy of inbound marketing, we now link everything through to our website, all our metrics, all our advertising. We see who comes on. We know what sort of constituency is looking at us. We know which pages they're reading, what's interesting to them. And then the other thing, once you decide that you're going to do a new website, it is important that you keep it becomes a living document, and you have to continuously sort of feed it, water it, nurture it. In fact, one of my staff members, I call him the constant gardener, because he's literally every day updating something on the website. That way you have something to actually market outwards to people to say, hey, one of our teachers just won an award for this, this, and this. Come see the photo gallery of him in Paraguay doing museum studies. So again, that's another way to bring people in, but it can only happen if you just make that decision. I think it's probably 1 foot in one camp and one in the other, but you can't have both.
What about video on the homepage? John?
Yeah, I think as much as, of course, I'm biased toward the asset of video, it's useless unless it's driving you to that website and to the front door of the institution. So we try to think about circularity as much as possible when we post videos. So if we're on social media, we want that to draw someone to the BC website. If we're on YouTube, we want to have a link in the description that matches the content of the video. So for example, if I make a Carroll School of Management video, I want a link in the YouTube description that directly brings me to a page where I can learn more about that specific thing that was spoken about in the video. So the more circular you are and the more you're driving content to the website, which then you can track, as the two of these guys have mentioned, that's huge. And of course, I'm biased toward visuals, and having video and photography is as prevalent as possible on your website to give a feel for what that church looks like, to get a feel of what the school looks like, the community looks like. Even if you don't have too much professional content, you can do that. You can include photography. You can go out and take some photos on your phone, or hire a photographer to take one round of photos of your school or your parish, and really utilize that. If you have more of a budget, one explainer video or overview of your community, of your school, of your parish is incredibly helpful to have on the homepage. Kind of a pet peeve of mine is I'll do work as a freelancer or even here at BC, and we won't utilize the video on the website. It will go on social media and it might die there or not be utilized again. Or it might play at an event, a gala or a function, but it's not used again on the website. And the more that you can repurpose things. There's no shame in that, to have people have multiple touch points for the content you put so much time and energy and money into making.
Yeah, absolutely. I think matrixing is one of the things that you can do where you maximize the effort you put into one thing, having thought about how can I cut this up and utilize it for many different other things. And that is key. We use it all the time. It's super effective. As John says, it's this circular idea. We always come back to the same thing.
When you talk about matrixing, so you're basically saying take the bigger video and then cut up clips. Is that what you're...
Cut up clips, take stills from it,
Okay.
and put those out.
Use it,
So,
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. On one of the magazines, Faith in Action magazine in back, Andrew, if you could hold it up, that is, we couldn't find the right picture for the front of this magazine, and that is actually a still from one of John Walsh's videos. And the resolution was incredible. I couldn't even believe that we could do that. But we did it, and it worked.
Quality equipment.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so I want to talk about money and budgets and how expensive things are, and at the same time, how we can maximize so many resources that are out there that people can use, and to try to make $5 go so far. So this is for all of you. If you had to name 2 to 3 cost-effective resources, I can name some too, but what would they be?
The first one for me is sort of the social media first person. How many are you familiar with Canva, C-A-N-V-A?
We love it.
Excellent.
It's our go-to.
Buy premium. That's my number one thing. That's what we use at the National Catholic Reporter. It's every client I've ever used, from a parish to a high level, to the USCCB, uses Canva. Premium is sort of, and then it is cost effective. Most nonprofits can get it for free. All you have to do is ask, but they do want you to ask. That's my number one thing.
So C-A-N-V-A,
Yep.
canva.com.
For graphics.
For graphics, okay.
I mean, definitely, if you want to try to get your parish, your church, out to a bigger audience, or within the community to a larger audience there, I would definitely recommend Google Ads. So, I mean, what you can achieve for $5 a week is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there are certain types of brand campaigns that you would just sort of brand establishing campaigns. Anyone who's come onto your website will then be targeted by that. And like I said, you can do a really good job for $5 a week.
But what's a Google ad, and what does it do?
So,
I mean, I know I could Google it, and I know that I could go on YouTube and figure out how to do it.
So, I mean, you build your own ad like you probably would in any other space, picture, a headline.
Canva, use Canva, build an ad.
Right.
Yeah.
But in Google, they have that platform already for you.
Okay.
So you just go straight in, you upload your images, you create your headlines, you create your links where you want people to go to, and you figure out who your audience is. You can copy and paste some code into your targeting sort of box, and that will then sort of fire this ad out to all those people, like I said, who have clicked onto your website. Then you can also upload videos, and you can do that very well as well. So there's a world of possibilities there, and to tell you the truth, I'm very much still learning that, although I think I've gotten about as far as I ever thought I would, because I'm not that kind of person. However, it's amazing that once you jump into this type of thing, you become completely consumed by it. Yes. So metrics become my new I sit down every day in the morning when I get into the office. I'm like, okay, great, let's have a look at Google Ads. But it definitely sets me up for the day. But you feel empowered. You feel like you're doing something. If you feel that numbers are dwindling, this is something that you can do that will have an immediate effect. So the notion of feeling powerless is completely gone when you're actually engaging in this type of marketing.
Michael, can you give us just a quick example of a Google ad that you did that maybe surprised you because it just went crazy?
So we had been talking about a transfer video that we had created. We had filmed some of it. Eventually, with the sad news that St. Joe's Prep was closing, we had to move much faster in order to give something to families that showed how easy it was to transfer your son from one school to another, so that we put that out. But then I put that out as a Google ad through, I would say, about 20 to 25 different zip codes via Google, and it has, the doors blew off, so to speak, in the matter of, if I can think about this, 6 weeks at a cost of around about $400. We've had about 2,000 clicks on that video.
Just to reiterate that from a parish standpoint, we're coming up on Holy Week and Easter. More often than not, your parishes are going to have more or slightly erratic or mass times that your parishioners are not familiar with. A lot of my parishes used to put ads in the local diocesan newspaper, and if you're doing that for Archdiocese of Boston, keep doing it. But a good use of your resources too, a Google ad about your mass schedule, perhaps. You can incorporate video, you can incorporate just the schedule itself. For my clients that did that, they saw a mass attendance increase of over 50% at all of their Holy Week liturgies because people knew where they were and how to get to them. Just very simple.
There's a platform that we use for the magazine where you upload a PDF and it turns it into a digital magazine, and it's called Issuu, ISSUU.com. It's free, and you can take your bulletin or your newsletter and convert it to a PDF, load it up on Issuu, and then your parishioners can just read through it's a better viewing experience, and it's $0, which is key. What about, John, from a video standpoint? I know John had just mentioned some other platforms out there, but like something like an Animoto or something that they can use to mix video with stills.
Yeah,
for no money.
That's the hard part about video. It can be pretty intimidating to think about starting a video production for yourself. But like I mentioned, your cell phone is your biggest friend. Free editing platforms are also your friend. One initiative that we did with our students, so on Instagram at BC, it's actually run entirely by students. We'll post our own content, like the videos and some more professional photos, but students go around and take the photos themselves, and there's a team of social fellows that post. So one thing we've started doing is creating vlogs, which are essentially like selfie videos of someone's day in the life. So we bought a reasonably priced camera, a couple $100, like a point and shoot, if you're familiar with that concept of camera. And the students can go around and walk through their day-to-day life, talk to their friends, narrate themselves while they hold up the camera. And then you could also do that on a cell phone. So you can buy relatively inexpensive stabilizers, I would recommend, like handheld ones that are, a couple $100, and that will help the camera from rocking up and down and being almost unwatchable footage. So if you have your iPhone, you can use a relatively inexpensive stabilizer. If you have a little bit more budget, you can get a point and shoot camera that students at a school can make selfie videos of. If you were at a parish, you could have a point and shoot camera like that you could take still images of, perhaps like a service engagement, or you could give it to one of the parishioners who's engaging in that service. They could talk to the camera and kind of narrate their experience. So that's kind of the tiers. And then, of course, you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on camera equipment, which is intimidating and very frustrating. But those are some of the maybe more accessible solutions.
Or you could just use your phone and spend nothing. I think budgets and money, the pull of that, it's intimidating. I keep going back to that word, but I think it is, and yet at the same time, we all have to be storytellers. That's so incredibly important.
There are, we've been talking about that. There are smaller resources and cost-effective resources out there, but even sort of zooming out the conversation, don't bite off more than you can chew. A lot of my parishes get really excited, and they want to do everything. They want to have an account on every social media outlet. They want to, they want 15 different email newsletters. Do find out what you do very well and just do that the best. And if that's just maintaining a Facebook page and a really, really good website, if you're a parish, or if that's maintaining sort of an active Instagram presence, a great website, and a solid internal email newsletter, that's fine. I mean, we work for the church. I'm sure everybody in this room has like 7 different job titles and then 10 other things that come under your job responsibilities that aren't under your title. So it's very easy to get overexcited, to dream big, to build something, then get overwhelmed by it and go, okay, I got to push that aside. But build something sustainable, including from a budgetary standpoint, and that will be enough for right now.
Yes, because I think that the one thing that we have become, and perhaps we're not really aware of it, but viewership out there is incredibly sophisticated. They may not know it, but they really are. They see so much media that comes their way that they are very discerning, and they know what's good and they know what's bad. They may not be able to articulate it. So to John's point, if you find something you're good at, stick with it. Make it as great as you possibly can, because that's what's going to keep people looking at it, be it a Facebook page or be it a website. If it's a Facebook page, great. You can make, I've seen some beautiful ones, and they leave an impact, and they reinforce to me when I'm looking at it that these people know what they're doing. They think deeply about what it is. They care about what they do. I would like to be a part of that in whatever capacity that might be.
From a communication strategy standpoint, so what did we learn from COVID? Right? I mean, I know, John, we had a conversation, and you said to me, during COVID, the church was so incredibly creative, and they had to move quickly, and anything went. Like, just get it up there and get it out there. But now that we're kind of moving out of that, is the bar higher now? And
yeah, definitely coming out of COVID, the bar is higher now. One of the things in every capacity that I am with NCR, my consulting business, is I've discovered is there's a lot more competition for newsfeed space on every platform. And there's a lot more competition for time. It feels like people were shot out of a cannon, both physically and digitally. So everyone started traveling again. That's why the airlines are a mess. But everybody's still online. And so the point of doing something very well and having high quality content is well taken. That's one of the things we've learned from COVID, is creativity. Even now, is extremely important. I mean, we had parishes that were celebrating Mass on the roof and live streaming it to their parishioners and draping a release form saying, we have the license to all this music, Facebook, please don't sue us. And that was wonderful and very, very, very creative. Now, that's not going to work now in 2023, but it worked then. So I think the name of the game on social media is innovation. Now, we've always known that, but I think COVID highlighted that for us. I think the other thing we learned, too, is the importance of digital ministry and staying connected. Now, God willing, something like COVID does not happen again where our churches and schools are shuttered. But there were a lot of secular entities that were a lot more prepared for it than we were, because they had built robust digital media communities. And so they were able to say, though it was still very traumatic to their communities, we're going to move online for a little while, but we have this. They didn't have to build it. And I worked with so many communities that had to build and minister to people in crisis going through a very severe trauma. And that's how you unintentionally lose people, even if you're trying to love them and connect with them through it. So I'm not saying prepare for the next COVID, but I think it highlighted just how imminent and necessary a digital media strategy in any way that you can afford to create it is.
I also think COVID taught us the power of Zoom.
Yes.
And the intimacy that can come with that. And we looked at a lot of our programs at the Church in the 21st Century Center, and we thought, are they Zoomable? Is that even a word? And then we started building online communities on Zoom. And I would encourage both Catholic schools and parishes to take a look at your programs, and don't be afraid. I mean, we all want to be together, but there are hundreds of people that signed up tonight for this that just wanted the video. right? So, but we need to understand the convenience and the power of Zoom in our programs, like for Faith Feeds and Breakfast with God and now Pray It Forward. And they're all just going great guns, and it's all online.
For our hybrid is so important. So for our parishes and for our schools, my actual parish that I belong to has seen an incredible increase in its attendance at just weekday ministries, not in person. They would love it to be in person, but people can't brave the horrible Fairfield County traffic for Tuesday men's ministry at 6:30 or 6:45 after working all day. But they can log on Zoom and they're connected. So we've seen that outreach to people infuse the life of the parish in a very new way. And I think, by the way, this is a great example. The C21 Center has done an incredible example if you're looking for an example of how to do hybrid well.
Well, thank you. Michael, did you have something that you were saying about Zoom?
No, I mean, for us, the hardest part of COVID was understanding the technology that would allow us to create virtual tours, because no one was coming on campus. And boy, was that a lot of work. So part of being nimble was to create various, tours that had video footage mixed in with these various sort of, directional mapping type of softwares that would allow people to travel through the video into the space and then see the space. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of work. And so I'm definitely happy that COVID has gone. The one thing that I think was very difficult was that messaging became more important than images, because everyone's face was covered and you couldn't show the humanity. And so what you said or what you wrote became that much more important. So if it's a lesson for us to learn, we should think about that no matter whether it's COVID or not, because it's a good lesson. But now that when you have a human face fully exposed, it's so much more powerful.
I also think too that we can't be afraid of mistakes. I mean, we're going to make mistakes, and at any level, but you just try it. You jump and find your wings. It's not always going to work, but try it. I mean, I think that's a piece of advice.
And I think people appreciate that. If you have a close community, they appreciate the effort more than the failure.
Absolutely. So I'm going to open it up, because I'm sure a lot of you have questions that I haven't asked yet, and that can help you in not only your ministry, but also in the work that you do in your schools. So we have our friend Eileen, and she has a microphone. So if anyone wants to just ask some questions, by all means.
Hello, and thank you for having this. In our community, we're challenging because we have a huge range in age. So we have, older parishioners that, they aren't coming to church because of mobility issues or whatnot, or they're afraid of COVID, and they're not obviously going to be online or whatnot. And then we have younger families that are coming in. So addressing that challenge where you have this huge age, range to deal with. We were fortunate enough that we were able to put a recording of Mass on the local cable TV, but that's about the extent of it. So, what are some of the ideas, especially for listeners that are not online, like how to reach out to them?
It's a great question. I was blessed to be today on my way up here with my great uncle and great aunt who are in their late 80s, and were very pleased to show me that they can text now from their iPads. And they were shown that, and they're wonderful, wonderful, amazing people, brilliant people. But the technology was a little intimidating. They were shown that by their children and their grandchildren how to do that, and that's a wonderful way of illustrating sort of digital mentorship. I've seen some parishes where they literally have younger people, patient younger people, asking older parishioners if they'd like help in a very non-judgmental, very open way. can I help you with this? Our parish records Mass or live streams Mass. What can I do to get you connected? That's one way. There might be some that say, not really interested in online Mass. And so then that's when I would elevate it to the pastor and say, and from a communication standpoint, it's very, from a digital communication standpoint, if they don't want to be online, if they don't want to watch TV, we do need to find a way to reach them. So if it's personal calls once a week, I had pastors that during COVID made it their business to call every single parish family, every single one. Some people answered and some people didn't. And I have the good pastors kept doing that, even though they were very, very busy, just to check in. What can I do for you? Can I bring you communion? Do you need anointing? And that's really important. So I say sort of the digital mentorship is sort of part one, and then asking what can we do, because my experience with any human, older or otherwise, is they'll tell you if you ask, especially Catholic parishioners. And we can talk a little more offline about reaching that age range. I just need to know a little bit more about what we're looking at here, but there are ways.
I also think too, there's an opportunity for both at the parish level and at the school level to have workshops, digital workshops, not only for parishioners and staff, but then also for parents as they try to wade in this scary world of social media. And again, it's an opportunity to gather people in community, but also exchange some valuable information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you aren't reaching your community right now and want to, you can do it relatively cheaply. Ecamm, for example, it's $29.99 a month, which will provide you with a service where what you shoot on your cameras can then be streamed through, for example, your website or your Facebook page to your community. So you just give them the link and they can click on it and boom, they're in the room or they're in the church. Ecamm, E-C-A-M-M, I believe. It's a Massachusetts company. Yeah. And it's very inexpensive.
When we send out this video recording, we'll send a list of resources for you too. So, yeah. Other questions? Oh, John, did you have a thought?
Thanks. In terms of most churches and parishes, we're looking to increase offertory and parishioners becoming donors. Do you find that digital is replacing or taking more of a front than printed solicitations? And do you have any suggestions of how to use digital to increase parishioners' engagement with supporting the church?
Definitely. First of all, it's a phenomenal question. The answer is yes, but. So I would say for the majority of the parishes that I work with, they've moved at least eclipsed the 50% of their donations mark to online, but not every one. Some of the wealthier parishes I work with, that's not the case, because bigger in-kind donations come generally via check from a sort of a personal one-on-one. And for some of the older congregations that I work with that are still a little bit unfamiliar with digital donations, the quick best practices I would offer are as few steps as humanly possible. There are some platforms that enable donations that are extremely convoluted and difficult to use, and so at the risk of being crass, the less amount of time that someone can have to rethink their generous donation, the better. And so if you're step, and it can't be done on mobile, forget it. I'm not going to do it. So that's number one. The second is a very clear and visible donation link, button, page, whatever way you want to do it.
On the homepage?
On the homepage. I'm always stunned at how hard it is to donate to some organizations, because I've got to go through 5 different steps to find the donate link. And again, by then I'm thinking, oh, geez, do I really, $50 could probably buy me half Chipotle at this point. I don't know. And that's a horrible thought, but often that's what happens. Those are sort of my quick hits, but from a social media standpoint, direct solicitations are a big no-no unless it's a dedicated campaign. I'm not as anti that for schools, because I think there's a time and a place to do that in the schools, but from a parish standpoint, a direct solicitation is often found to be a little bit tacky. So for me, raising awareness of the ability to give online, in in sort of the physical space, not in mass, but perhaps after it, and then using social media to show the life of your parish in such a way that someone will be running to donate to you instead of being pulled to donate to you.
I would say, sorry, John. I would say that going digital is probably the best way to go. The only sort of what I can see and what we experienced was, do we have the ability to capture everyone's email? So when we were sending out print mail, we had everyone's address, but we didn't have everyone's email address. So you need to find, whether that's a little kind of, 5x4 card that you send, update your information, do that, or provide them with a QR code on your, your website, something very quick to scan. It'll take you straight there. But we definitely find that we have two asks. We have the give button, which goes straight into the type of giving, and the other one would be, look at other opportunities for you on the CM website. So we're driving them to the website. The way we think about that is, at least now we have their eyes are on the website. They're seeing what we're doing. They're looking at the boys. That's more of a passive way, in a sense, to market.
I'm not at all sure if this is possible, but I know Venmo is a huge way to avoid people not having cash. And I don't know if churches can do that, parishes can do that. I'm not sure the business tax implications of that, but setting up a business.
Good.
You can?
Yeah.
If that was at the end of the aisle when I was at church, and if I could scan a QR code with my phone and donate through Venmo when I likely don't have cash, I think would be extremely helpful.
If you don't know what a QR code is, Google it. It's super important. Other questions?
Yeah, there's a free online site. It's called QR Code Creator.
Yes.
Just click on it,
So
and
simple.
it's so great. Yep.
Yeah, love it.
How can we find balance? Because it's not easy with technology, everything, so study, play, worship, but to do something about, you spend hours, especially for that is more difficult. So how can we find balance and everything?
Moderation and
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? It's a good one. And so I think it goes back to a little bit of initial legwork of identifying your goals and identifying your current audience and your target audience, finding out where they are and only going there and doing that as best you can. And also communicating to your audiences. So this is probably my favorite example. So during COVID, when I worked for the Diocese of Bridgeport, my dear friend and mentor, Bishop Frank, would celebrate Mass every Sunday. People thought it was live streamed. We never told people that. It was actually recorded, and we would send it out promptly at 8 o'clock every single Sunday. And there were some Sundays where MailChimp, which was the service we sent out, the email, would take, maybe 45 more seconds. But in that 45 seconds, I would have 50 emails. Where's Mass? Where's Mass? Where's Mass? Where's Mass? Where's Mass? I need Mass. I love Mass. Where's Mass? And though it certainly will get me years out of purgatory, I responded to every one of them very authentically saying, MailChimp had a little bit of an error, or the one or two times it happened, the video is processing and I'm struggling right now. My internet is down. We just had one day we had a hurricane or a tropical storm. I'm really trying and it's just not going to happen right now. We're looking at 10 and I sincerely apologize. So that's a long-winded way of saying is you can be honest with your audience and say, we're trying, I'm trying, this is a little overwhelming right now. I'm the person sort of peel back the curtain behind the social digital wall, very rarely, but you can do that effectively and say, I'm trying, I just can't get to it right now. We even had a diocese, an entire diocese in this country, give up social media for Lent. And then they decided, never mind, we'll just do that on Fridays. But they did do it. So there's precedent.
So if I understand correctly, your question was, how do we balance communicating and not communicating with our audience? Yeah, I mean, it's really important to know that. I mean, donor fatigue, for example, is a real thing. And you just need to understand where are my touch points in the calendar year When do I want to communicate more? When's the best time to ask? And then when you're not there, you just leave people alone. I mean, you may put out something that says, a piece of information that will, I don't know, sort of just keep people in touch with you. But for asking and for bothering and things like that, you just sort of radio silence, really. The one thing that we've done at school is when we communicate with our alumni, I got rid of all the donate buttons on those newsletters because I thought to myself, I don't want to use my alumni communication as a means to generate money. It seems like we're really gouging people. So that's become a place where we simply just provide great information that connects the community. When we do ask, then we will, but I don't want it to linger out there. Just, it's an afterthought.
Thank you for your beautiful presentations. I am Maureen from Nigeria, Africa. I could hear beautiful communication strategies for vital parishes and schools. And based on your world, you've really gone so far. You have a lot of beautiful means of communication through the social media. Ours is the opposite, rather, the physical human activities that bring people together is more than the social media dimension. And you could see people traveling from one state to another for activities that will bring the faithful together. You could see pastoral ministers moving from schools, bringing schools together for activities that will help to enhance the faith of the youth and bring them in touch with one another. So my question is, I saw a beautiful caption in this paper under Parish Vitality by Daniel. He said, if parish is not just what we do, but who we are, we must continue to dialogue about who we are to each other and who we are together in Christ to the rest of the world. So my question is, how do you balance these beautiful activities that you have on social media with human physical touch to bring that vitality in the parish that will be visible, that will bring people together, and then witness to the world beyond social media? And then how do you really ascertain the impact of that, of the beautiful programs that you do through social media in the life of the people, in the life of the parishioners, and in the life of the students, to really help them grow and live as vital students or vital Christians in the world around us? Thank you.
I think it's a wonderful question and beautiful quote you shared. One example of this, I think, is your communications need to be an invitation to a human experience. And one example that the C21 Center did recently was the Mass and Mingle program. So we saw that 20 and 30-something-year-olds were maybe lacking the faith community they may have had if they went to college or just in their local communities. So Andrew and Eileen did a lot of work on Facebook groups and social media platforms to really invite people to join for the program. And they use a lot of simple photography. Like, we haven't done any major videos, but we've posted photos all the time. There's a lot of nice headlines. And the language was very personal. It was in Facebook groups of, groups of 20 and 30-something-year-old communities locally. And it was very invitation-oriented language and photography. So I think they did a really wonderful job of utilizing technology in an inviting way to create a really impactful human experience.
I think that's the key word, right, is invitational. In any communications, first of all, wonderful question, and I get asked that very often. In any communications, the two most important words, the two best things you can be are authentic and a little vulnerable. And so I think digital media is intimidating for a lot of people because of its permanence, because of its large outreach to people and the ability to reach many people. But having a little bit of vulnerability creates community because you lower your walls a little bit, which encourages somebody else to lower theirs. So that's sort of part one. As I think maintaining that type of communication in all that you do, authenticity and vulnerability, will lead to more community, which hopefully then leads to more physical community. But my answer is probably a little more counterintuitive and might not necessarily be what you're looking for. But have you ever tried to get a teenager to do something? Usually you ask them to do the opposite, right? Or you don't push, you let them come to the conclusion on their own. I know a lot of my life was, and still is me being hard-headed when someone tells me, you must do it this way, you must do this, and having to come to that conclusion on my own, and ultimately realizing that whoever said that to me, my mother, my wife, my mentor, my spiritual director, yes, that was the right idea. I probably should have listened to you however many years ago. But the more you push people to come in person, the more you talk about the primacy of in person, the more you talk about how this doesn't really matter here on digital media, the less you're going to get people. The less you're going to get people to come in person because you're devaluing an experience that's occurring to them right now, and that's very real. So I think it's validating and encountering that person online, speaking to them and having an authentic conversation and loving them right there, right now, because hopefully what you're displaying to them loud and clear is this is how I'm going to be to you in person. This is what it's going to look like when you come to Mass, when you come to a community event. You know, you don't need to be worried or upset or scared or even necessarily lazy. This is what it's going to feel like, look like, be like. That is the best way to sell yourself rather than just repeatedly saying, you should come in person. It's better to be here in person. You really should come in person, because eventually someone's going to say, all right, I get it, but I can't do that right now. The very, very brief aside, my wife and I, we just had a baby. We haven't been able to come in person to church up until really Laetare Sunday. And the priests in our life have all been really wonderful at saying, what can we do for you? They set up a private live stream for us to watch Christmas Eve Mass, to get you to come in person. They weren't harping saying, you must come, you must come, you must come, you're missing your obligation, you must come, you must come. It was, what can we do? And we found our way back as quickly as we could.
One thing I think we overlook a little bit about social media is we just think of it as, oh, look at us, we put this out. That's all we do. We find that at Catholic Memorial, our most, shall we say, viewed, liked, commented on posts are for our students' retreat, be they Kairos retreats, be they freshman retreats. And what that tends to do is it solicits responses from former alumni who say, oh, I remember when I was that, I did this, that, and the other. I remember that Brother Cavett is still here. He's wonderful. And that begins a community talk. So people are talking amongst one another. So we definitely feel that providing that outlet for alumni who've once gone through the same experience to connect again is a very, very fertile place. And I think gives, I would say, probably a more authentic, should we say, value to social media.
I also think, too, that it is so important to try to really look at your programming and try to do as much as possible in person, and then tell the story. So people feel like maybe I'm missing something. I should have gone to that, and because you're right, there's nothing more important than encounter, right? And we encounter each other and to be with each other, and even tonight, so continue to do that and then tell the story so that other people want to experience it too.
Yes, none of this is a vacuum. It's all together. It's bound together for the one thing that it's supposed to, and that's to bring like-minded people, be they parents of school children, be they parishioners, whatever, fans of something else, together.
Oh, Andrew, you've had your hand up. So.
Wonderful. Sure. I want to be nice. Okay. First of all, thank you so much for coming. Ann and I work at a local pre-K through grade 8 school, so a Catholic. So essentially, we see ourselves marketing to two groups, where we're marketing to the prospective student, but we're also marketing to the internal family to retain them. We've made a strategic decision to communicate with our internal families, mainly via email for the most part, other than when we're together. And we try to limit the number of emails that we're sending, right? Because we know that, in fact, it gets in the inbox and clutters it. What that results in, though, is some of our emails being incredibly long. So my question is, both for your external and your internal constituents, what are you finding the average amount of time is that someone will actually read something that you've written? And does that make it as even more important to add video to the way that we're communicating even to the internal constituent groups?
Absolutely. I think it's super important to think of emails as bite chunks, small bite-sized pieces. And then, for example, if you do have more information, why don't you attach it as a PDF or have it as a link? That way, when people are interested, they can then, go there. Otherwise, they feel very overwhelmed. They may miss the piece of information that's most important, that you most want to convey. And so that gets all lost in the shuffle. But does video help tell a faster, quicker story? Absolutely.
Jumping off of that question, I also work at a local preschool through grade 8 Catholic school. And I'm curious your thoughts on how to balance the communicating what's happening every day in the school to the current families with the quote unquote marketing to the new prospective families.
So for me, it comes down to segmentation. And what you want to do is obviously the folks that are looking at your school need to be communicated differently. So do you have a website? So that would be the place where you want to be communicating to those who don't know you and may be looking at you. Those that are already in the sort of fold, those are social media and emails. But so definitely don't start to mix those two constituents. Definitely keep them very separate and communicate only the value of the school and the programming and the attention to the children, etc., and the cultivation of them in that world. Don't let the two mix.
And from a strictly social media standpoint, when a platform affords you the ability to create a group, that's your internal audience, that's sort of your parents, your maybe recent alumni, maybe even separate them out. And the external platform that's going to the world, that's going to capture every one of God's special children, that is your external audience, I think.
I also think the power of digital newsletters. I think Catholic schools do that, and many do it so well, but I don't think parishes do it enough, using constant contact as a platform, getting a parishioner or someone young to kind of be in charge of your newsletter. You don't necessarily need to get all your information about your parish in the bulletin. Like, put together a cool newsletter and get it out there.
We use a weekly Sunday mailing to our families that basically has the bullet points of all that they need to know for the upcoming week. And that sort of tends to, and that's peppered with links to places. But again, they can choose what they want to sort of focus on, but every week something like that comes out.
And I'm a big fan of utility in email. When I worked at the Diocese of Bridgeport, we would offer, our email newsletter. Everybody wanted a hand on it because we had tens of thousands of emails. But what we offered first was a 3-minute video of Bishop Frank offering a spiritual message for the week. Then, of course, we had sort of the news articles we really wanted you to pay attention to, which was mostly sort of, the big diocesan stuff. And then we had sort of the events segmented under that. And, of course, there was, on appeal weeks, there was a way to find the donate button. But offering specifically your internal audience, something that's not just necessarily your news, but perhaps is something that is sort of a free offering to them to keep them engaged, to keep them connected, and to keep them from deleting the email, right? I don't need anything this week, I'm fine. Because if they grab something that they weren't expecting or that is useful to them, they might find their way to links that you really would prefer they look at.
And one thing to really consider with your print collateral or messaging in any way is information hierarchy. Where does everything need to sit? High up? How much? Where does it, again, where our eyes scan, we look at the left side first, then we look at the right side. So do I break up my newsletter into literal bullet points going down all the way, or do I have the main feature or the main point I want to make floating right on the right side of the page? So those are things to really bear in mind, because you certainly don't want to lose your audience.
But how would one know that if one doesn't know that? Google?
Well,
Best practices.
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
But yeah, there are best practices for how to maximize your readership and how to sort of construct information based on the hierarchy.
Hi. So this might be a little bit off topic, but it's more on, I'd say, team building, collaboration, process questions. Any suggestions for if you're in a vibrant parish with some great strategic plans, but you have a really busy pastor, a really small staff, a lot of ministries, a parish council, and volunteer committees trying to, execute and move things forward.
That's a great question. No. Well,
it's not like a business per se.
Let's see if
There's
we
a lot
can
of,
tease that out.
Yeah, volunteer
So,
time.
are you looking to be the communications person in that scenario? Yeah.
I definitely see huge internal communications opportunity
Okay.
amongst all those and getting buy-in.
So that is a great question, because I feel like all of us have some struggle with that. Probably the way I find the media the strategy that I find the most helpful is, especially with the really busy pastor, is first ensuring that there's that pastoral trust. So if you have to continually go to the pastor for approval on every little thing, that's a struggle. So for me, I would my workflow would kind of look twofold. The first would be ministry leaders. Any ministry leaders are responsible for getting their information to me. I would set that expectation. I would give them parameters by which I need it. If, for instance, if you're looking for, if there's, the social justice ministry is going to do something, they usually are, and it's really usually remarkable, and they want a video. Okay, well then the social justice ministry is deputized to film that video and do that themselves. And so there's an element of sort of control, of saying, okay, I'm going to get what I'm going to get. I offer them parameters. I need it filmed in landscape, not portrait, unless I'm looking for short form. And it can't be blurry. It has to be filmed on an iPhone 11 or high, basically giving them parameters. And then what you get. With a pastor, a really busy pastor that needs to approve everything, again, it sort of seems rudimentary, but a workflow I find really helpful is find not his day off, but his quietest time. Ask him for 5 minutes and say, I'm going to give you on your desk my top 5 list. I don't need any longer than 5 minutes. Here's my top 5 list of pieces of content, strategies, plans I need you to look at and approve, and that will be all. And I need you to say, then we're good to go. That's what I would suggest.
That was the biggest takeaway when we did the program a couple of weeks ago from Father Jim Laughlin. He was just like, he just delegated in a beautiful way and kind of let it go, and then had a lot of his team here. And you can't do it all, but it's a challenge.
Also looking for a platform by which to communicate with all the various constituents.
I'm a volunteer, but we keep, having ideas and they're just not getting moving forward.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it looks like our time has come to an end, or just a beginning. I was thinking that just like our faith continues to grow and develop, and we learn so much from our faith, we can learn so much about the way we bring people into our faith and communication and hospitality, and all the other resources that are out there can help us do that. So grateful for your wisdom and your grace and time and sharing. And I hope that many of you can walk away. If you just walk away with one idea, that's a good thing, right? Start there. That'll help us all at least embrace some sense of balance. Also know that when we do send this resource out to you, as I mentioned, we'll send you a bunch of links for other resources. And then also let us know at the Church in the 21st Century Center what other programs, what other needs are out there where these discussions can help you do your work and grow community and be together and help grow our church. So our email is church21@bc.edu. Please feel free to email us. And again, we thank you so much for your time. You're busy, you're tired. It's Lent. We're praying through it and moving through it, and only to experience the glory of Easter. So we wish you just a blessed and holy Easter. And we appreciate your friendship and look forward to staying connected. So thank you, John. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, John. Appreciate you so much.